Fasten your seatbelts for the realest Eagles and Sixers YouTuber! One who plays no clickbait and gets to the point! The myth, the legend, Nicky Steves! Come to my channel, you know the deal. Yo, boy, always keeps things real. I'm simply statue, think the slate, dropping unrealistic man, 2K takes for the clip. Even though cats like that get views closer to the milli, never hear me preach, look on to Philly. Before you watch the Eagles all the way through the early 22, authentic talk, forget what others do. Come to my channel, you know the deal. Yo, boy, always keeps things real. The 24/7, 365 way. Sports content for the reals that fill the day. Good afternoon, folks. It's been a full week since we've been on, 2 weeks since we've been on here doing the 3-point blitz. We took a break from it last Tuesday, but because of that, now we have a lot more to talk about. We saw the Super Bowl was played between the Seattle Seahawks and New England Patriots. We'll talk about that. We had a few new NFL head coach hires we didn't get to discuss yet. We had the NBA trade deadline. So there's actually going to be some interesting, we actually have a lot more to talk about tonight. So let's get this afternoon started because we back to the show, folks. We're going to start off like we always do with the rant of the week. This is going to be about, yeah, that's right. Yo, Nicky, Mitch raid. That's right. I see it. We got the whole raid coming up. The whole crew coming in here fresh off Mitch's in the morning show. We start off with the rant of the week. Works out perfectly because we got some Sixers fans here. Let's get into it. Seriously, Sixers, what was that? I mean, I added it to my IG story. I did a little YouTube short with text, but I was waiting for this show to talk about it. So the Sixers traded Jared McCain to the Thunder with no suitable replacement in mind. no suitable replacement. They literally, on year 2, decided to trade Jared McCain to the OKC Thunder. Nobody in return. Not Alex Caruso, not getting Isaiah Joe back and trying to utilize him similar to what the Thunder did. Just trade Jared McCain for an extra first-round pick from the Houston Rockets, because that pick from the Thunder was initially the Rockets pick from that Russ trade years ago. So it'll probably be in the 20s. Dude. I mean, yeah, while we're on that subject, Mitch brought up it was a salary dump for sure, yeah. Now, salary dump-wise, we did dump Eric Gordon, which I was in favor of because he wasn't doing us any favors at this point, but why Jared McCain, who actually has some potential to help this team going forward? Now, I understand McCain came off an injury. Edgecombe was looking like the real number 2 guy behind Maxey for the future. I get that, but Jared McCain's still a solid player. If you're going to trade him, at least get somebody valuable in return that can at least help you for the rest of the season. Like I said, an Alex Caruso, or even bringing back Isaiah Joe, using him similar to what the Thunder did. Something. Any player in return would have helped, but instead he just dumped Jared McCain off to the OKC Thunder, which I don't blame Jared McCain at all. Hey, go to OKC, try to win a ring over there while you can. I don't blame Jared McCain one bit. I'm mad at the Sixers front office for just trading the guy in his second season while there's still some potential, and he's actually a young player, which is something the Sixers always have not been the best at getting in terms of young players. So here you go. You actually got a young player that can help, and you're just like, nah, let's just dump him off to the defending NBA champs, and let's give them a chance to win another ring without some value to help you the rest of the way. I mean, granted, the Sixers are, to me, they're a playoff elimination waiting to happen, but come on, at least give it your best go. Get something in return. I mean, hell, you could have even tried to get Mike Conley. I mean, I think that obviously that didn't happen, but I mean, come on, try to get, then again, Mike Conley would have been another veteran, so that's not exactly the best solution either, but gotta at least, if you're going to trade one of your young pieces that can help you for the future, you got to get a replacement player in return. Bottom line, the Sixers completely botched that part of it, which is the per usual. We as Sixers fans, me, Blaze, Mitch, we're used to this by now. You guys know we're used to this. We're used to either getting guys that aren't the right fit or just dumping off guys without something really valuable in return. And here it is again. So feels like deja vu. Daryl Morey, let's be honest, that Houston Rockets team was a contender in spite of Daryl Morey. Let's be real. I would even say that Daryl Morey held that team back from potentially reaching a finals. If they had better front office structure, they could have actually maybe made a run. But that's just the world of ifs, ands, or buts. But the point being is Daryl Morey's not exactly the best executive in the world. And we as Sixers fans have realized that the hype going into Daryl Morey's tenure was just that. It was hype and flash. Because this is just so dumb in so many respects, man. I mean, Jared McCain, I'm sorry the Sixers got rid of you. Sorry for the fans that we have to deal with this again. And all I can say is, Jared McCain, best of luck in OKC. If you get a chance to win a ring, go for it. Win you that ring. And best of luck the rest of the way, man. But NBA trade deadline-wise, man, we're going to have a lot to talk about there because it wasn't here last week for the three-point blitz. So we'll go through the winners and losers. But before then, we got to put the nail on the NFL season's discussion because we just had it go down. Super Bowl 60. Hey, I would love to say that's mine, man. But, man, we got to thank you. Nick stopping by in the chat. Oh, yeah. Got it rolling. But now we're going to talk about the Super Bowl. Now, it's interesting. Now, from a game standpoint itself, for most of us here, because most of you guys in the chat, I know, we don't really have any Seahawks fans in the chat unless Football Talk with Bo somehow stops by. But usually he doesn't do so for the three-point blitz. He's probably occupied at this time. But really, I mean, unless you were a Seahawks fan, this really wasn't that great of a game, honestly. It just but hey, not every Super Bowl can be great. But to be fair, it's kind of for last year, though. All right, just screw it. We'll just stick with that. But last year, they're kind of ironic because last year we were the Super Bowl was a blowout last year, but we as Eagles fans got the joy of seeing the Eagles curb stomp Kansas City. So for us, it was a great game last year as Eagles fans. But hey, it is what it is. But I'm not going to say too much bad about it. It just happens. Sometimes you get Super Bowls that are more competitive. Sometimes they're blowouts. But in this one, it was just a matter of, let's face it, the New England Patriots, who had a softer schedule. They took advantage of that schedule, won a lot of games against teams like the Jets, the underachieving Dolphins, even the underachieving Bills, despite making the playoffs again. You had other teams like, who else did they play again? I'm trying to think. NFC, they had the NFC North. The NFC South. You had pretty crappy division. They played all those teams. Pretty easy schedule to skate to the number 2 seed. You beat the Chargers where their battered O-line got to them in the wild card round, divisional round. You mainly got there because of C.J. Stroud's horrible performance. I mean, not to take anything away from the defense. And then the conference championship. That was one of the ugliest wins I've seen a team make to get to the Super Bowl in a long time. So let's be honest, there were weak points in the Patriots game, even going into the Super Bowl. And the Seahawks looked like the stronger team, and it happened. And Mitch, I'm going to toot my own horn if you're still there. Remember on the Sunday morning show, I said it would be 27-13. I was off by 2 points on the Seattle side. We got 29-13, and I said the second half would make Seattle would take away, and for the most part, that did happen. They really stepped up and took away with the game. So I was barking on the right tree with my prediction in that one. So toot. But man, I got to say this. Congratulations to the Seattle Seahawks. Well-deserved Super Bowl win. Hey, they hit the reset button. Pete Carroll had kind of ran its course. He was great for them in the early 2010s, got him the 2 Super Bowls. Hell, he was part of that team with the Legion of Boom defense, prime Russell Wilson, beast mode Marshawn Lynch. He was the coach when they got that in-season trade back in 2010. And he started to build that team up from a dumpster fire in the late 2000s to a Super Bowl winning team. They had those 2 Super Bowls they played in, but then they kind of came crashing down a little bit, bring in a new coach with a fresh philosophy. Year 1, they just narrowly missed the division of the playoffs with a valiant effort, but they move on from Geno Smith, get a younger Sam Darnold, who's fresh off a Pro Bowl year with the Vikings. And Darnold, well, he didn't have as great an individual season. He was good enough, and he was surrounded by the right crew of guys for them to win the Super Bowl in this case. So if you want to take notes on how to rebuild a team, take notes from the Seattle Seahawks. That bringing in a fresh coach can help out. And look at what happened when Pete Carroll went to the Raiders. Look how out of touch he looked. He looked like, I'm trying to think of a compare. He looked like Art Shell in his second tenure as a coach, where Shell was a good coach in the 90s, but by the 2000s, Art Shell was out of touch. I mean, that's what Pete Carroll looked like. But Mike McDonald, he took that Seahawks team to the Super Bowl. You had Kenneth Walker, who ended up being the game's MVP. You got JSN, Rashid Shaheed, who actually can be a valuable player on a real team now. You got him. You had a solid defense mixed with some younger guys and veterans like D. Lawrence, Ernest Jones. Then you got younger pieces like Devin Witherspoon, Kobe with a C, Bryant. And you had a nice little – see, that's what happens when you build a team up. And you had Clint Kubiak as the offensive coordinator, did a really good job with the team there. Of course, Leonard Williams as well, valuable piece. You got guys like Mike Morris, Byron Murphy II. A good all-around team, too. And ultimately, the better team won in this case. Look, man, I mean, give the New England Patriots props. They came a long way. They went from a dumpster fire to making it to the Super Bowl in 1 year with Mike Vrabel. Now, I still give Mike Vrabel Head Coach of the Year honors, well-deserved award, by the way, which we're also going to get to that. No worries. We'll talk about the awards too, folks. But, yeah, Mike Vrabel certainly earned his Coach of the Year accolade. He took a team that had been a dumpster fire, turned them into a Super Bowl team. Easy schedule or not, it's never easy to take a dumpster fire and get them to the team and get them to the Super Bowl. That's still impressive no matter what. Soft schedule or not. But so Mike Vrabel deserves nods there. And speaking of deserving, so Vrabel deserves credit, but ultimately Drake May was outmatched in the biggest game of his career. He clearly wasn't ready for the Super Bowl stage yet, and the Seahawks defense exposed him. Now, could Drake May ultimately get back there one day? Of course he could. It's only the second season of his career, but now the interesting question is, how does Drake May follow up this near MVP season and one game away from winning the Lombardi when the Patriots got a tougher schedule? We still got to wait and see how free agency and the draft plays out. Both you got to see what the Patriots do, what their opponents on their schedule do, what their division rivals do. That's going to be, you still got to wait and see how that all plays out before we see how the New England Patriots pan out. Of course, we got Arku, long-time fan of the 3-point Blitz. I was chilling at my cousin's house, having chicken nachos and lemonade flavor vitamin water. Yep. Hey, Super Bowl Sunday's the day to snack on those nachos, those chicken wings, guacamole, pizza, etc. So salute, man. At least you enjoyed the experience. And that's really the best thing you could do, is enjoy the experience if you don't have a team in the race. As far as the game itself goes, man, hey, like I said, for us, like for me as an Eagles fan, Arku is a Cowboys fan, Coach is a Giants fan, fellow Eagles fans, Blaze, Mitch, Chad is a Steelers fan. It wasn't the most exciting game in the world because neither of our teams were in it. It was best if you were a Seahawks fan, obviously. But hey, if at least it was an enjoyable experience, hey, it was worthwhile. And speaking of, the experience, we had the halftime show. To me, it was kind of indifferent about it. I mean, obviously it went over well with the Latino crowd. They enjoyed it. And, hey, it was something different. I mean, for a Spanish show, it was good. Now, obviously, for non-Hispanics, it really wasn't that appealing to them. They didn't find it as relatable as we talked about on the Sunday morning show. But it was what it was. To me, I'm kind of indifferent about the show. And Arku says, my cousin was trying to tell me Sam Darnold was the 49ers backup in 2023. Yeah. Yeah, he was. And I think looking back in hindsight, you can see where that one season, sitting with Brock Purdy, Kyle Shanahan and company, really helped Darnold out. He learned a lot from that one season, actually seeing what a winning culture looks like. Because prior to that, he was just the Panthers and Jets. So that, ironically, the Seahawks division rival 49ers may have played a role in Sam Darnold's career renaissance, if you will. So, but as far as Sam Darnold goes, look, if there's one lesson we can learn from Sam Darnold's career up to his rookie season with the Jets, the time he was quote-unquote seeing ghosts, to now after Super Bowl 60, it's that a quarterback alone does not win championships. And really, that was the lesson of the season from the start all the way to the Super Bowl. You had the Colts before the collapse happened, before Daniel Jones' injury. He looked like an entirely different quarterback than he did with the Giants. I mean, this was Daniel Jones' best season if you look at the body of work from week 1 up to the injury. Mac Jones, when he filled in for Brock Purdy, looked pretty solid compared to what we usually saw from his Patriots tenure. So, and then we saw Sam Darnold with the Vikings last season. Looks like the Vikings made a mistake. But especially with J.J. McCarthy's injury history, the Vikings wish they could have that decision back. And then you see now Sam Darnold with the Seahawks. Okay, wasn't as great statistically as he was with the Vikings, but he had a really good team around him. He didn't need to be. he had Kenneth Walker, who went on to be the Super Bowl MVP, who ripped apart that defense and helped get the Seahawks in field goal territory to score a bunch of field goals early. Then the defense took over late when Drake May was going into hero mode without, he's still a developing quarterback trying to play hero mode under pressure, and Seahawks defense picked him apart, got a few picks that led to some touchdowns. First, you had a pick that set up a touchdown pass to put him ahead 19-0, and then you had a pick six that pretty much more or less unofficially sealed the game for the Seahawks late. I mean, the Patriots did score 2 touchdowns, but let's face it, those 2 were pretty much garbage time touchdowns, especially the second touchdown. That was capital G, capital A, capital R, capital B, capital A, capital G, capital E, capital T, capital I, capital M, capital E, touchdown. I mean, let's fit in the Seahawks, man. But the lesson we can learn, getting back to what I was saying, is it takes more than just a quarterback to win. And you look at Kansas City, they didn't have as strong a roster this year as they're used to, and Patrick Mahomes' magic couldn't bail Kansas City out. They didn't even make the playoffs. They had a losing record. Matter of fact, Mahomes trying to bail out the team caught up to him, and he got injured. So we learn it takes a lot more than just one quarterback to win games in the NFL. And I think we realize that this season proved it. And I think going forward, you're going to see a lot more teams reevaluate who they hire as their coaches, who they bring in to build around a quarterback going forward. Because you saw Jacksonville with Liam Cohen, how a new coach, fresh philosophy, helped Trevor Lawrence have his best season. And you're going to see a team like the Houston Texans that had a really good team, but quarterback ended up ultimately being their weak point. So, yeah, quarterback sometimes does play a role in it, but it's not just that. It's the team, too. I think that's the lesson we learned from this experience. And like you said, Grega said, Patriots will have a harder schedule next year. Absolutely. Exactly. And we still got to wait and see what happens through free agency and the draft with not just the Patriots, but the rest of the AFC as well. That's good. It's really hard to make. I don't like to make predictions immediately after the Super Bowl because we still got to see how the offseason goes. We still got to see which teams make it into week 1 at full strength or which ones have some unfortunate injuries before the season starts. So I'm not even going to make predictions for next year yet. It's way too early for that. We'll just say this. Seattle Seahawks, it was a well-earned championship. How they built that team. And even Pete Carroll, even though he was gone, he does play a role in it because some of those drafts they had in their later years, when their defense got younger, played a key role in this all coming together too. So Pete Carroll still deserves some credit for this. I mean, the Russell Wilson trade, let's be real, that actually ended up being a blessing in disguise for the Seahawks because they got future picks from the Broncos and they were able to rebuild that team. Well, the Broncos had to get rid of Russ after 2 seasons, lucked their way into Bo Nix and Sean Payton coming along. But the Denver Broncos still ironically get credit for that Seahawks run too. So if there's one lesson we can learn here is if you're going to rebuild, rebuild the right way. Trade your star player, get some picks in return, get a new coach, and start from the ground up. That's ultimately what happened there with the Seahawks, and it paid off for them finally with a Super Bowl win, folks. One moment. All right, we're back, folks. And now on to, well, we're still on the subject of the Super Bowl. We talked about the rebuild, but on to Kenneth Walker himself. Look, Kenneth Walker's been an excellent back. The back they haven't had since Beast Mode, and it really showed in the Super Bowl. Some people were worried about the Seahawks even losing their second string back. What's his name again? But didn't matter in this case because, hey, Kenneth Walker stepped first. You had the NFC Championship game. Sam Darnold stepped up against the Rams, which was their toughest game on the entire playoff stretch. Played the game of his life. Helped lead them to a win in a shootout against the Rams. Then you come Super Bowl time. All right, the Patriots defense, to their credit, they did a good job getting pressure on Darnold. They did a good job forcing him to get rid of the ball. He wasn't as comfortable just throwing the ball like he was against the Rams. So Patriots defense got that right. But that opened the door for Kenneth Walker. You just call an audible. Feed Kenneth Walker the rock, gave him close to 30 carries. He had over 100 yards on the ground, and ultimately won Super Bowl MVP as a result. Now, I was going to be smart and say that Drake May should have won the MVP because he was a sitting duck who kept getting dropped, and he threw multiple picks, which helped the Seahawks put him away in the fourth quarter. But on a serious note, though, hey, Kenneth Walker deserved it. If there was ever one other player, it could have been the kicker, too. Which, what's his name? Because that would have been for Jason. Actually, Jason Myers could have even been the MVP, too. Because, I mean, you could have made an argument. I don't know. I'll let you guys discuss. Who do you think was the right MVP? Was Kenneth Walker the right guy, or could Jason Myers have been the MVP of that game? Because you could put up a case, because he went out there, made 5 field goals, made a couple extra points. You could make an argument for Kenneth Walker being the Super Bowl MVP. You could. Not Kenneth Walker, sorry. Jason Myers. You could make that argument. Give me 1 second. Sorry, I just got to respond to an important message. Sorry about that. I just had to reply to an important message real quick. So, yeah, man. I mean, you guys want to debate in the chat, you're more than welcome to. But, hey, I think ultimately I'd say Kenneth Walker was the real MVP because he played a key role in setting up Jason Myers to kick all those field goals, too. Yeah, Jason Myers' field goals were made up a majority of the points the Seahawks had, but ultimately it was Kenneth Walker and the defense that put Jason Myers in position to make all those kicks. So I'll say Kenneth Walker was the right guy. I mean, it would have been interesting to have a kicker win the MVP, but unless it's like a low-scoring Super Bowl and your kicker makes 2 long field goals, that's the only way I could realistically see a kicker winning the MVP. So, yeah, so congrats to the Seattle Seahawks. Now officially joining my Philadelphia Eagles, the Los Angeles Rams, and Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the 2-time world champion club. Oh, and the Baltimore Ravens, too. Let's not forget them as well. So, congrats to the Seahawks in joining that club. If there's any other team that's in that 2-time Super Bowl winning club I forgot, feel free to remind me in the chat. But speaking of football, while we're still on the subject, let's talk a little bit about the head coaching hires because, So while we're still on that subject, let's stick out in the West. Clint Kubiak, the offensive coordinator who helped the Seattle Seahawks out, is now going to the Las Vegas Raiders as their head coach. Now, one thing we'll see within due time whether or not Clint Kubiak played a key role in that win, or if it was a little bit of both, because we saw how the Detroit Lions, with Ben Johnson as the offensive coordinator, they were Super Bowl contenders. But all of a sudden, Ben Johnson goes and takes the Bears head coaching vacancy. Lions come crashing down to earth this season to being mediocre. But then all of a sudden, the Bears have this phenomenal season, their best season in years. Caleb Williams takes that big leap. It'll be interesting with Clint Kubiak. We might we'll wonder if Clint Kubiak goes to the Raiders and takes this team even to like 7 wins in their first year with Fernando Mendoza, who we know is going to be the number 1 pick, who we know the Raiders are building around for the future. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. We know that's going to happen. If they can at least maybe be competitive, even if they don't make the playoffs, kind of like a Cam Newton rookie year, where they go from a dumpster fire to being a competitive team, despite not having a winning record, then we might start, and the Seahawks take a bit of a step back, then we might realize that Clint Kubiak had more to do with it. Because we've seen that happen too from time to time. Remember the Eagles the first time around, Doug Peterson, Frank Reich. Reich went to become the Colts head coach. Offense took a step back with, it was mostly the talent that got them tied to 2 9-win seasons and 2 playoff appearances following that Super Bowl 52. So it'll be interesting to see, can the Seahawks still keep that spark going without their offensive coordinator? I mean, they still got a phenomenal defense, so I still see the Seahawks being in the mix, but it'll be interesting to see, do they still have that same magic, or do they fall to like the Philadelphia Eagles from Super Bowl 52, post Super Bowl 52, or Detroit Lions post Ben Johnson of taking a step back? But it's interesting now because Clint Kubiak, if he can go there and just year 1, even if I don't expect the Raiders to necessarily make the playoffs year 1, but if they can just be a competitive team and win more games, then you could see that maybe Clint Kubiak played a key role in it. So for me, that's my realistic expectation for year 1. If Mendoza can start all or majority of the season, have more TDs than INTs, and they can at least maybe win 6 or 7 games, all right, that's a respectable first year. So that would kind of be my expectation for Clint Kubiak year 1 with the Raiders. Not necessarily expect them to go to the playoffs because, let's face it, they're still in a competitive division. You're going to have Patrick Mahomes coming back. There's always a chance if or when he's fully healthy, they could get back in the mix. You still got the Chargers with Jim Harbaugh, which at least gives them a chance to make some noise in the regular season. Broncos are still coming back. Sean Payton, Bo Nix and company. It's going to be a tough go in that division. So I'm not expecting the Raiders, who are the most behind at the moment, to make the playoffs. But if they can just show a spark and be competitive, that at least gives them some potential for the future. Kind of similar to Cam Newton's rookie year, where the Panthers only won 6 games, but they went from 1 win to 6. They were still competitive in most of their losses. So there was at least some hope for the future. But time will tell on that. But Clint Kubiak, there's a lot of potential here. It's just a matter of how it actually plays out. Because remember, rebuilds don't always happen overnight. Sometimes it may take a few years before a rebuild really gets going. You see, sometimes that happens. You got to remember how, you remember a team like the Colts with Peyton Manning. It didn't just happen all in one day. It took a few years before they really got going. I mean, you see the Giants with Eli Manning. It took a few years before that team really got going. So we got to see on that one. But that's just one of the other hire we talked about on the Sunday morning show. Mitch was there. We talked about the Cleveland Browns picking a questionable hire at head coach. I mean, first you had Jim Schwartz, who had been the most stable coach there. He kept that defense afloat, even during a time period when, mind you, the team as a whole was terrible, but their defense had something going. Look at last season. The Browns highlighted that season was their defense. Matter of fact, their defense was so dominant, they actually had upset win over the Packers early in the season and an upset over the Steelers late in the season, despite having a lackluster offense the entire season. And Jim Schwartz played a key role in that defense. 2023, when they made the playoffs, that you had that Magic Joe Flacco December run, but you also had that Browns defense was phenomenal that whole season, keeping them somewhat in the mix for Flacco to make that magical run happen. So Jim Schwartz he was a guy who at least deserved the opportunity as a head coach. I don't know if it would have worked out, but he should have gotten the opportunity over Todd Monken, who, what did he do with the Ravens to earn this spot? What did he do? Underachieve with the Ravens offense? I mean, let's be real. That was Todd Monken's claim to fame, if you ask me. He drastically underachieved with that Ravens offense as their offensive coordinator, particularly in the 2025 season. Now you could say 23-3, 2024, but looking back in hindsight, it had more to do with Lamar Jackson than it did anything else, I think. You look back on it. Todd Monken, I'm not fully sold on that. But then again, it's the Cleveland Browns. What do you expect from them? Let's be real. I mean, that Cleveland Browns team is just, they're the Browns pretty much. But we still do have other teams to talk about. We had the Arizona Cardinals went and hired Mike LaFleur, Matt LaFleur's brother, bringing him in to try to help bolster that team. Now, as far as Mike LaFleur goes, I'll say this. Mike LaFleur is a better hire on paper than Clint Kingsbury. I will say that because here's the thing. The difference is at least Mike LaFleur, as the Rams offensive coordinator, did experience some success. So at least they're going for a guy who had a more proven track record as opposed to Clint Kingsbury or Jonathan Gannon. But then they turn around in hindsight and hire Nathaniel Hackett as their offensive coordinator. Nathaniel Hackett, the same guy who is partially to blame for Russell Wilson's failure in Denver, partially, who was instantly fired for Sean Payton as offensive coordinator. Yeah, it's so funny because I was at work. You guys know me for the longest. I've told the story. I got to work, but he's a Cardinals fan. And we talked about this, but we talked about this one, though. And as soon as the subject came up, I could just see the look on his face. He's not optimistic about it. He is not optimistic about Nathaniel Hackett as his team's offensive coordinator. But it's typical of the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, they're a poverty franchise who've lucked their way into a few deep playoff runs that are stretched few and far between. And outside of that, there's really nothing to rally behind for the Cardinals. I mean, and there's people that say Kyler Murray's the problem. Now, look, Kyler Murray has at times underachieved, and he hasn't been the most motivated player in the world. But when you look at what a dumpster fire the Cardinals are, I could say it's partially the Cardinals' fault for Kyler Murray's lack of motivation, too. I mean, you got to wonder, is it possible if Kyler Murray goes to a better team with a better system around him that maybe, I don't know, maybe he could have a career rejuvenation? We've seen guys like Darnold, Baker Mayfield, Daniel Jones go to new teams and be better off for it. So maybe it's possible a guy like Kyler Murray, who has been a former Pro Bowler, who's at least shown some flashes. If he were to go to a better team, maybe Kyler Murray could have a career resurrection, but who knows? I mean, the Arizona Cardinals, Mike LaFleur looks decent, but then Nathaniel Hackett is your offensive coordinator. I'm not too high on that one right there. And you got the Miami Dolphins, Jeff Hafley, the Packers defensive coordinator, who did a pretty good job with that Packers team building up that defense. But he's going to Miami, it's going to be a bit of a challenge for Hafley as a head coach because you're going from a coordinator to a head coach is a big challenge as it is. But going to Miami where the quarterback situation's uncertain for the future, you got to build that team up. You know, you're going to have to really hope that maybe for Hafley, hope that some Packers players follow him to Miami come free agency time. But I don't know, man. That's not looking like the most optimistic situation coaching-wise. But who knows? We'll see what happens. And then you got, last but not least, there's one other team. I think it was the Pittsburgh. We did talk about Mike McCarthy to the Steelers. I think I pretty much covered it with the head coaches. So those situations right now, we can look on paper. Yeah, there's some potential Clint Kubiak could make something with the Raiders, but we got to see what happens. We still don't know for sure till it happens. The Cardinals, I feel like Hackett kind of takes away some of the potential of Mike LaFleur on paper, but who knows? You never know in these situations. Maybe Matthew Stafford kind of takes a step back, but who knows? I mean, anything could happen realistically. Matthew Stafford could have a sudden fall from grace like Brett Favre did from 2009 to 2010. I'm not saying it will happen, but who knows? Maybe something that unexpected happens. Maybe, I don't know, the Seahawks get the injury bug, and maybe that opens the division a little bit. I mean, you never know. Who knows? Maybe free agency, some of these good teams in the NFC get hit, and it opens the door for the Cardinals to sneak in a playoff spot. Who knows? Maybe in the AFC, the Dolphins kind of sneak in with a more favorable schedule. I mean, you never know what could happen with some of these new head coaches, how it could play out. So we just got to wait and see on that one. But I'm going to take a quick break Then when we come back, we're going to have some NBA to discuss. We got the trade deadline to discuss, the winners and losers. And we had an interesting Monday night in the NBA, too, that we're going to talk about. So stay tuned, folks. We're going to take our usual break before we switch helms. So stay tuned. We'll be right back, folks. And we're back, folks, after a short little break. Well, we talked about the Super Bowl. We had a nice little time there. For anyone hoping I would talk about the commercials a little bit, maybe later tonight we'll talk about that later on the new show that's debuting tonight.
Okay, we got some breaking news from the NFL world today. So, former Indianapolis Colts head coach, former Eagles offensive coordinator Frank Reich has now been hired by the Carolina Panthers.
Somewhere along those lines.
I like those questions. I like those questions, dude. They're nice.
Tonight's gonna be a thriller!
Have I told you I worked at the World Series? It was my first year at the stadium. I went to Fanatics Fest, I went to Comic-Con, and I went to the World Series. It was my first year at the stadium, and the Yankees made it all the way to the World Series. Unfortunately, we lost 5 games to the Dodgers.
I said the Giants will be a perfect fit for John Harbaugh because you already established the quarterback situation. You already established the running back position. You already established the wide receiver position, and you have the top 5 pick in the draft.
Todd Bowles, at best, is a mediocre coach. He did the same situation with the Jets back in 2015, ultimately maliciously ruining a power-hungry Baker Mayfield and potentially Mike Evans.
But Indianapolis ultimately came back, got the go-ahead touchdown. Then, at the end of the game, when Brady got the ball less than a minute, Peyton had his head down the entire time because he knew Brady had enough time. But the interception happened. It's funny. All of a sudden, Peyton Manning hears the crowd roaring. He finally looks up and starts jumping up and down real. That's right, folks. We'll have that later tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll talk a little bit about Super Bowl. I'll reiterate some of my points. But now, time to switch gears. Let's talk about the NBA, man, because during the week off from the three-point blitz, we had the NBA trade deadline. Now, I briefly ranted about the Sixers move, trading Jared McCain without getting a suitable replacement in return. But now we're going to talk about the trade deadline as a whole, because there are some winners and losers, just like there are every trade deadline, or I should say some potential winners and losers, because we still got to wait and see throughout the rest of February into March and April who benefits most from the trade deadline. But here are some teams I could see potentially being winners and potentially being losers. Let's just get the negative out the way. I'll go with the Chicago Bulls. Now, some of you might think, wait, Chicago Bulls, they go in rebuild mode. How is this a loss? It's a loss because the Bulls traded Vucevic, got rid of Kobe White, but what do they really have in return? Think about it. The Chicago Bulls got nothing long-term going for them. They waited till it was too late to get rid of Vucevic. They didn't, even when they traded DeRozan and what's-his-face and Levine, they didn't really get anything in return for that. So it was just, and they waited a whole nother year before they got rid of Vucevic, but they got no value in return for it. So it's like, why did they do this? Why did they, if you're going to trade, they waited too long to trade their key guys. At least if you're going to trade your key guys, you got to get something in return. Like the Thunder, when they got rid of Russell Westbrook, they got future picks in return. They took advantage of it. When they traded Paul George to the Clippers, guess what they got in return? Future MVP Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So if you go and trade away what you have currently, at least get some future picks or get some valuable players in return. Because even the Thunder went that Rockets trade. They did get one season of Chris Paul, who did help, mentor some, who did help with the development of someone like SGA. SGA probably learned some tricks from Chris Paul playing one season with him. So at least, they got that in return, and they built a championship-winning team out of it. The Rockets, when they got rid of James Harden, they had Harden to ship to the Nets. They got future picks. They were able to rebuild, and now they're one of the top teams out west. The Chicago Bulls, they got rid of their guys, but what are they getting long-term in return? So that's why I got them as losers. It's like, yeah, they're in full-blown rebuild mode, but with nothing currently for the future, unless you get lucky and land the number one pick, maybe back-to-back years in the lottery, then maybe you get lucky. But as of right now, that's a loss for them. Next losing team is the Golden State Warriors, who ultimately traded their one guy who had potential to be the next trade of the face of the franchise, post Steph Curry and Jonathan Kuminga. Now, Kuminga, he still hasn't reached that peak yet, but here was a guy who had potential going forward, and they ultimately got rid of him. They pulled the typical throw in the towel, give up on a guy early. Now, here's a guy in Kuminga who was actually productive in the offense, who took a big leap year 3, started with 16 points per game. And I know this year he wasn't the greatest on the court, but you're not really that great of a team this year. And Steph Curry isn't going to be around forever. I mean, you don't really have, what do you got? Steph, Draymond, Jimmy Butler. I mean, they made it to the playoffs last year with that trio, but ultimately it's in the second round. And Warriors, what do they got going for the future, really? I mean, they are 29-25 now. I mean, because Jimmy Butler's out for the season. We know that. Steph Curry's going to miss the All-Star game because he's out, so he'll be out for some extended period of time. I mean, you traded Kuminga, who at least was one of your better players. What do you really got? I mean, you got Porzingis. I mean, Porzingis, you got not Porzingis. Who was it? Ponzemski? Yeah, Porzingis, right? You got Porzingis. Yeah, he's an all right role player, but Porzingis is not the number one guy. He's more of a role player who benefits from having the right people around him. I mean, you don't have Jimmy Butler. Steph Curry's banged up, and he's not going to be around forever. I don't like this because what do you really got for the future? I mean, Porzingis is a rotational guy who's at this point become a journeyman. There's nothing going for him. Another loser actually is going to be a team that actually didn't do anything at the trade deadline, or at least didn't do anything of note. The New Orleans Pelicans, who are pretty much just staying stuck where they're at right now. You got a bunch of guys who, I look at the Pelicans roster, I see a bunch of guys who would be better in different situations. Zion Williamson is, now if he didn't have the off-the-court discipline issues, they probably could have traded him by now and got him in a better team situation. Now, I will say this about Zion. Going into the offseason with him being in better shape now, yeah, I mean, he'll have a higher trade value now that he's actually in shape, maybe for a team that needs something. Maybe Zion could go to a different place, be a better, and play better in a different situation. I mean, he's played 39 games this season. He's already topped 2 of the last 3 seasons in game total. So there's that. And he has been pretty solid. He's been respectable on the court, but Zion's not the guy that's going to lead a team. He's not. He'd be better off going to a team where he could be a number 2 or 3. I mean, and this is just a random possibility. I'm not saying this is actually going to happen, but it would be interesting maybe if LeBron actually does call it a quit after this season and retires. If the Lakers were to get Zion, make him the number 2 guy behind Luka. I mean, I don't think that's actually going to happen, but that would be interesting. I think Zion would be better off long-term in a number 2 or 3 guy on a team, because clearly he's just, even when he's healthy, he's not the guy to lead a team. He's more suited, like I said, maybe a number 2 or 3 guy at best. And then you got a guy like Jordan Poole who would maybe be a better 6-man, I think. It's like you got a bunch of guys there that just are not meant to be lead guys trying to lead this team. And they couldn't get anything in return. They couldn't trade Zion for future picks. They couldn't get nothing. They couldn't even get some decent role players like maybe a Tobias Harris. I mean, I know that seems random, but so, all right, but I don't know, man. It just like, come on, Pelicans. You got nothing going. Can you at least do something? Try to get some future picks. I mean, trade some of your role players, get something in return. And speaking of teams who didn't make a lot of moves that are at the bottom of their conference, the final big loser I got are the Sacramento Kings. Sacramento Kings. So you went in, you got Levine and DeRozan. You fired your head coach thinking he was the problem. Your former coach of the year, mind you. Now, he goes to the Knicks. Turns out with the talent around him, he's actually doing better with the Knicks than he was with the Kings. And now you're in a worse predicament. You're not even close this year. You're the bottom team. Oh my gosh, it's like for 1 year they actually made the playoffs as a number 3 seed, and they were the lovable underdog in that 2023 playoffs. After that, they fall back to a play-in team, and now they're back to me in a dumpster fire again. I mean, Jesus Christ. Oh my gosh, I mean, it's so funny. You got Russell Westbrook, who's just playing for a paycheck at this stage in his career. Let's be honest. His championship window's closed. He's just playing for a paycheck now. You got DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, who as the two of the main guys with the Bulls weren't that good. You're bringing him to Sacramento, hoping for a different outcome. You got Domantas Sabonis, who's in and out of the lineup with injuries. I mean, Jesus Christ. And you're doing nothing? Nothing at all? I mean, it could be at least, God damn, at least get some of these guys like a Domantas Sabonis or a Zach LaVine a chance to go to a better team and at least a chance to contend. At least give them a chance and maybe get some future picks from a team that's in win now mode that doesn't need those picks right away. I mean, come on, Kings. At least try to do something. I mean, I'm not guaranteeing it's going to work, but at least try. I mean, who did they get? DeAndre Hunter? Oh, wait, they gave up Dennis Schroeder to the Cavs, who, Cavs, this could have some potential, which I'll get to that in a few minutes, but yeah, Dennis Schroeder, who's a journeyman role player, still a solid role player, but a role player. But you're still keeping the main core together on a dumpster fire team. Like, I mean, I could at least respect the Kings more if they were at least trying. Even though the Bulls don't really have anything long-term, at least the Bulls are trying to make some moves. They're at least trying. I mean, we saw the Mavericks at least trying to make some moves. The Wizards are at least trying to make moves. They brought in Trae Young. Now they're pairing him with Anthony Davis, hoping that AD could actually be healthy. At least the Wizards are trying. I mean, I don't think they're going to get far, but at least I respect them for trying to make something happen. What are the Kings and Pelicans doing? They're not even trying. I mean, Jesus Christ. Right. And like Arku said, Mavs are trying to retool around Cooper Flag. Now, we'll take a few years for the Mavs to see if that actually works, but I respect that the Mavs are at least making an effort to do something. The Wizards, they're going all in for now, but at least they're trying to do something. What are the Kings and Pelicans doing? Seriously. I mean, this is just comedy show with those two franchises. It's funny for me. I mean, yeah, the Sixers front office, yeah, they're pretty poor too, as I ranted about earlier. You trade Jared McCain, but don't get anything in return. Not even a suitable replacement, like maybe trying to get Isaiah Joe back and utilize him like the Thunder did, or try to get an Alex Caruso, something. But as bad as they are, at least the Sixers have Maxey, Edgecombe, and Embiid. When he is healthy, they're at least they're competitive. And the Sixers at least could make the playoffs. I don't think they're going to win anything, but at least the Sixers have something. What do the Kings and Pelicans got? I mean, I'm really trying to think. I mean, a comedy show at best. That's it. I mean, these are outtakes from Animal House, basically, how bad they are. But I think I've ranted enough about the negative from these teams right here. And I got a team like the Wizards as kind of like a hit or miss. Because if some of these guys they got actually can stay healthy recently, they could, in the short term, be a decent team. But that's about it. The Mavs are kind of hit or miss, but that's more of a long-term deal. So this year won't really be the telltale of whether the Mavs hit or miss with their trade. So I'll leave those two teams, the Wizards and Mavericks, as hit or misses. Although I did say additional losers are the Bucks for not being able to trade Giannis and get something in return. Grizzlies kind of similar. They couldn't make a move to get Ja out of there and at least get something for the future, because I feel like the Ja Morant experiment has ran its course. Giannis with the Bucks has kind of ran its course. You got the finals win. It was fun while it lasted, but you know, that era of players being loyal is kind of over. You've kind of reached that point with Giannis where it was great while it lasted, but it's time to move on. And fire Doc Rivers for your own sake. But moving on to teams that might actually gain something out of it. Like the Boston Celtics. Now, they didn't have the greatest Now, for a team like the Boston Celtics, who are still in contention in the East, who are still one of the better teams, you got some pieces there. You got your guys like Jaylen Brown, who's stepping up, having his star individual season in Jason Tatum's absence. You still got guys. Peyton Pritchard's still a solid role player. Derek White's still there. Now you getting in Nikola Vucevic, who you're taking a guy in Vucevic who was never really meant to lead a team. You're getting him out of that spot because let's face it, what we saw with Vucevic with the Magic and the Bulls, he put up decent numbers. He'd occasionally have those great games, but he was never really the guy to lead a team. And now you're bringing in a guy like Vucevic. You put him with a really good team in Boston as a role player on an expiring contract. So it's one of those, if it don't really work out, Boston can just get rid of him, just let him walk in the summertime. So it's kind of one of those low risk, low reward type of trades. But Vucevic could potentially be a good role player and help that team for a playoff push. And that's good. Because now you got a guy like Vucevic he's a role player is really what he is to me. He was an overvalued role player on the Bulls, and now he's finally in a spot that suits his strengths better. He's got a good team around him. He doesn't have to do a whole lot. He can still help you out as a rebounder. He can still occasionally have a good scoring game on nights here and there. And he at least brings some veteran leadership presence to the locker room. And, Vucevic is a respectable dude. I mean, granted, he's not the best, he's a respectable dude at least. He's never really been a prima donna or anyone who's always demanded the spotlight. He's just been a blue-collar basketball player. And I think this is a good spot to have him in with Boston. So there's a potential winner right there. You didn't really have to move much for him. Another team is actually the Minnesota Timberwolves. They cleared some cap space, and they got Ayo Dosunmu, who for the Bulls was actually pretty solid. I mean, and it's good because you clear some cap space, but also get a younger, formidable role player that can help alongside Anthony Edwards, who's been averaging about 15 a game, 51% shooter, 41% from three, which is respectable. But, you bring in a younger role player that's got some, that brings more, kind of more energy to the court, faster, pretty solid finisher when he gets looks. You bring him in to be a role player alongside Anthony Edwards. That could be a potential win for the Timberwolves at least. Get some fresh blood in the locker room. That could help them as they make a playoff push. And let's be honest, T-Wolves are automatically, to me, at least contenders. They've made 2 conference finals runs last 2 years. You never know when the T-Wolves could get an upset series win somewhere in the playoffs. So this is a nice little addition to the team. I think that could potentially help them out. I mean, you didn't have to really give up much. I mean, you're not going all in for a superstar that's either that could bring some baggage to the locker room or negative baggage and could clash with teammates like a Jimmy Butler. You're not bringing that guy in. You're bringing in a solid role player to just help add some depth to the roster that's younger. And that's pretty cool too. And as far as like winners go, you also got another team too. The Indiana Pacers. Because now the Indiana Pacers, here's a team who they're missing Tyrese Halliburton big time. They are. Because let's face it, without Halliburton, you really got nothing going. And you have Miles Turner who just, I don't know. I mean, Miles Turner wasn't that great of a player. He was solid, but he's not even there anymore. Who do you got? Now you bring in a Ivanka Zubac, who's off of all-star nod, who had his best season with the Clippers. Here's a guy in Zubac who was better than Miles Turner was. So at least when you get Halliburton back, you got Ivanka Zubac, who's still got some years left, who could help you out once Halliburton's back and actually be a better center than what we had. So that's a good move right there. And he's also a cheaper contract too. So that helps you out from a business standpoint. I mean, that's awesome right there. I think for the Pacers, at least now you got something for the future. Because, we're trying to run it back with the same core minus Halliburton just wasn't cutting it. I mean, time will tell if they're actually a winner or not, but I think the Pacers could certainly benefit from this. Ibaka Zubac, that's a nice piece. But one team who I think we can more confidently say is a potential winner, who actually played last night and actually saw some splash. The Cleveland Cavaliers actually got a little busy during the trade deadline. Now, the Cavs haven't had a stronger regular season, but here's the deal. Now, you got Darius Garland, who was serviceable, but he wasn't living up to the hype. You got him out. You got DeAndre Hunter out of there. You got Lonzo Ball, who was just a name at this point to fill a spot on the roster. But you get Dennis Schroeder, still a solid player. Keon Ellis. And then you get James Harden from the Clippers, who has been having an excellent season. Still, even in the later stage of his career, James Harden can still hoop. So, and to be fair, Donovan Mitchell, James Harden look like they got some potential as a team right there. So I could dig, based off what we actually saw from the Cavs, they could be potential winners here. Now, come playoff time with Harden, you never know what you're going to get. You either get the guy who drops over 40 to put the Sixers up 3-2 against Boston, or the James Harden who only had 9 points in Game 7 in that very same series. You might get the James Harden that helped lead the Rockets to the Western Conference Finals. Or the James Harden from the Heat series in 2022. But for now, Donovan Mitchell, James Harden, it makes them better. And then at least, you could see them go on a bit of a run here late in the season. All of a sudden, the Cavs end up maybe doing something here. While we're still on that subject, I'm going to take a real quick look at the standings, see where we stand currently, because with Harden, I will say this. The bearded enigma gives them a shot during the regular season for sure. And let's take a look at the standings. You'll see, folks, let's see, you got the Pistons are still first. And we'll talk about their game last night, their eventful game against the Hornets in a minute. You got the Knicks are still the 2 seed, Celtics the 3 seed. And then you got the Cavs are on the 4 seed on a 4-game winning streak now. And you're bringing James Harden into the mix. That gives them and they're only a game behind the Celtics for the 3 seed. And actually, they're a game back from both the Celtics and Knicks, who are tied. So if the Cavs really go on a run late in the season, they could work their way up to the 3rd or 2nd seed, possibly come playoff time. And that could give them a real favorable first-round matchup. So it's a potential game changer. You got the Raptors. The Raptors did bring in Chris Paul for, let's face it, Chris Paul's ring chasing. The Raptors took him. And the Raptors are a pretty good team this year, but I guess they kind of brought in Chris Paul to help with some ticket sales as well. Bringing a experienced veteran who's ring chasing, a guy who can help sell a few more tickets, maybe generate a few more primetime games, just viewers just for his name. But the Raptors, they're pretty solid, but the most notable one, like I said, the Cavs. You're already starting to build momentum. Now you got Harden. They could work their way up. And then you got the Sixers, who, like I said, I think they're a playoff elimination waiting to happen. Magic, Heat, Hawks, Hornets. Now, the Hornets is an interesting one because they don't look that great of a team, but they are 9-1 in their past 10, and LaMelo Ball had a phenomenal month in January. Not to mention the Hornets knocked off the Thunder, the Sixers, just to name a few teams. LaMelo Ball, to me, was the player of the month, Eastern Conference player of the month for January, hands down. So now you got a Charlotte Hornets team who could maybe creep their way up to, if they keep that momentum going, they could get to the they could maybe get up to the 7th seed if they keep some of that momentum going and possibly have a favorable road to win the play-in to make the playoffs as a play-in team. Potentially. Let's face it, Bulls, they're going to sink. Bucks, Wizards, they're still on a 2-game losing streak. They're still 4-6 in their last 10. They're still a dumpster fire. And the Pacers, yeah, they got Zubac, but they're not really going to win anything this season. But I got potentially as a sleeper to make the playoffs, the Hornets, if they continue upon their January momentum, potentially. And now in the West, of course, you got Arcu's Thunder, and then the Spurs, they're still the top 2 teams. Denver Nuggets, who actually did pretty good without Nikola Jokic at the 3 seed. Now that Jokic is back in the lineup, and he's actually, for those that don't know, Nikola Jokic is closing in on having the most triple doubles. He passed Oscar Robertson. He's moved up to the number 2 spot. Now I'm thinking realistically, because he's in the 180s. Westbrook, who got the nickname triple-double man's in like 209 for his career. So Jokic still has a way to go, but Jokic will eventually pass Russell Westbrook and become the new triple-double man of the NBA. And then you got the Rockets are still the 4 seed. Lakers, like I said, the Lakers currently, they're just a playoff team to me in terms of making the playoffs. T-Wolves, though, they're the team that usually saves their best for the playoffs. We've seen it in recent years, so they're only the 6th seed now, but they save their best. The Suns, Devin Booker's been on a bit of a run this year, and Dylan Brooks could be a candidate for most improved player this season. Let's be real, because Dylan Brooks is actually, he surprised everyone. He could potentially be the most improved player of the year. And we'll even take a look at Dylan Brooks in just a second. Then you got the Warriors, no more Kuminga. Jimmy out for the season. Curry's a little banged up. He'll miss some time. Blazers, maybe the Blazers could win a game in that play-in tournament. Maybe could work. Maybe they could win a match. I don't know. I mean, a 9 versus 10. Blazers at best are making it to the opening round, getting crushed. And then you got the Jazz, Mavs. They're not going anywhere this year, but there's at least some future potential with those teams. But that's kind of where we stand standing-wise. But while we're on the subject of Dylan Brooks and him potentially being the most improved player, let's take a look, because recently Dylan Brooks has been on a tear for the Suns. Let's take a look. Recently, we had February 7th in that game against the Sixers where they fell short. He had 28 points there, 24 against the Warriors. Blazers isn't that great, but he still had 22 against the Clippers, 27 against the Cavs, 40 against the Pistons, over 26 and 26 against the Nets and Heat. I mean, Dylan Brooks has been stepping up lately, and if he continues to go on a little bit of a run like he has this season, maybe Dylan Brooks, most improved player, maybe, but time will tell on that one, though. But, hey, man, it's an interesting trade deadline. Now we just got to wait and see which teams pan out, which teams don't. But, oh, boy, man. We're still on the subject of the NBA. Let's talk about last night a little bit, shall we? It was not necessarily a great Monday night, but it was an eventful Monday night. I mean, I don't know what happened, man. Was there a full moon last night? Because we had 2 fights last night. First, we had the Pistons and Hornets had a big brawl. And you had the T-Wolves game. You had Naz Reeve and Mo Guy got into a brawl in the T-Wolves Hawks game. They both got ejected. The Hornets game, you had 4 players tossed, Hornets and Pistons. And this looked like a throwback to the bad boy Pistons with Bill Laimbeer, Isaiah Thomas and company. What happened? I mean, let's go through it. Start with the Hornets and Pistons, because that's the one that caught everyone's attention. Because this resulted in 4 players getting tossed from the game. It started, you had Charlotte. You had 4 players tossed combined in this fight. It was, for the Hornets, it was Moses Diaby and Miles Bridges. For the Pistons, it was Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart. Isaiah Stewart, man. I remember we talked about this last year during the summer on episode 18 of the 3-Point Blitz. Me and Coach Ed talked about. We talked about how Isaiah Stewart has a pattern of getting into these altercations and getting into scuffles. It's like, look, with Isaiah Stewart, it's like, look, I understand, once or twice it happens, but when Isaiah Stewart's repeatedly either getting suspended or tossed from games or getting arrested for altercations with fans, dude, that means you got a problem on your hand. All right, look, one time, one fight, one wild brawl, okay, it happens. Like Ron Artest, Malice at the Palace. It happened. But to be fair, both the fans and the players played a role in that one. So I'm not just going to solely blame Ron Artest for that. But outside of that, you didn't see any crazy incidents from Meta World Peace on the court. In like Isaiah Stewart's case, dude, you have a history of getting into fights with people all the time. At some point in time, it's like that train of you being the bad boy is going to eventually wear thin, and people are going to get tired of you, and eventually your career is going to start to plunder. Now, as far as the fight itself goes, aside from the common denominator on the Pistons, Isaiah Stewart, it started on a foul where Diabate fouled Duren, but then Duren turned around, let his emotions get the best of him, and pushed Diabate, if I'm pronouncing it right, and then ultimately you had about like a 30-second scuffle all of a sudden, ended with 4 players. And it's crazy that Tobias Harris had to actually intervene in that as well and actually pull one of the Hornets players up. But credit to Tobias Harris for actually being a professional and actually trying to put a stop to the scuffle. He intervened. He actually kept one of the Hornets players back. Now, you could say he did it to stop his own teammate from getting hit, and that's part of it. But Tobias Harris did play a role in de-escalating the situation. He at least deserves props for that. He did something right in this situation. Now, as far as the 4 players go, look, I understand sometimes emotions run high when you're competing, but you got to be smarter than that. You got to be smarter than to start punching and getting into an altercation. Kind of similar to what happened with DK Metcalf. He ended up missing the final 2 games of the season because of what happened in Detroit. And he came into that playoff game a little bit rusty. Now, to be fair, Rodgers was at fault for that too, but sometimes these incidents get players suspended and can cost you in the long term. See that 04-05 Pacers team. They had a lot of suspensions that year from that Malice at the Palace, which, like I said, both sides played a role in that. The fans and the players, so I'm not solely blaming them, but the players letting their emotions get the best of them may have hurt them in the long haul. It may have hurt their chances of winning a ring that season. So sometimes, man, you got to be aware of that. You got to be smarter in these situations, man. Now, as far as the suspensions goes itself, I'm going to pull this up. I'm actually going to share the article and the link with you guys real quickly. Let's see if we got the full. We probably don't have it yet. I don't know. But if anyone knows what the suspensions are, then by all means, let me know. But you got to be smarter than that in that situation, man. Scott, you can't always let your emotions get the best of you. I understand, it happens. But then you also had the game in Minnesota, too, where you had a brawl there as well. So it's like, oh, man, what happened, bro? It just, last night was not a great night. And here's the link. I just put it in the chat for you guys about the brawl. So here you go. If you guys want to see it yourself, that's where I was looking at it on my phone to make sure I had all the details accurate first. Because I did see it, but I only got like a glance of it. Like I saw it once. I didn't watch it over and over. So I just looked at that article to make sure I had all the details right. And then I also saw the fight in the Timberwolves game. You had Naz Reid got into a scuffle too, man. I mean, I understand sometimes it gets heated, man, but you got to be smarter in those situations. Now, fortunately, these were only small brawls, so they weren't, nobody got cut open. Nobody had to go get stitches. So it escalated pretty quickly. So fortunately, this wasn't anything serious, but still, man, you got to be smarter than that as a player. You can't let your emotions get the best of you. If you feel like that might happen, just don't get close to another player, period. But hey, it does happen, though. It's sports, and this happens. So just say players got to be smarter going forward. That's all. Especially Isaiah Stewart, who has a history of this. Like I said, okay, one time it happens. Fights happen. A player gets suspended. But when it's happening repeatedly, yeah, that's a problem. LeBron and Alex Caruso almost had a fight last night. Then they fended off. So I don't know. Was it a full moon across the country last night? Because that's often our go-to joke when people are acting crazy. Because last night was just – it looked like some of those players were in the wrong profession last night, the way they were behaving in those games. It did, man. That's the first I'm hearing about LeBron and Caruso. I got to check that out too. I mean, it probably escalated quickly, but – and Arku confirms it was just for fun. All right. So it probably wasn't that significant. But, man, that is what it is. And speaking of basketball, I mean, I don't know if anyone here actually cares about the WNBA. Me, I'm kind of the guy that glances at it. I just peeked at it a little bit. And I know there's a negotiation. Last year, there was a meeting on Tuesday between the players and the Players Association, the representatives had a meeting and they didn't reach full negotiation. Now they're going to have another meeting. The point being is for Coach Ed and some of the WNBA fans, they might miss out this season or they might have a shorter season. So for the WNBA fans, hopefully for them and for the players' sake, they reach a deal and they at least have a season. But that's another hot story going on right now because part of it is the players aren't happy with the salary. And now before you say, prima donnas want more money, you got to remember the women don't get paid the same as the men do. The men are usually the ones that have most of the zeros in their bank account. Now, the women still get paid better than most people in the country, but they're not getting as much of the revenue as the men do. So you can see from their viewpoint of hey, let's compare to our NBA counterparts the amount of money they make to the amount of money we make. We should get more of that ourselves. So I see where the players are coming from. And I think the players should get should get a bigger chunk of the revenue themselves. I mean, it happens with the NBA, the NFL, MLB, and all them. Why not let the WNBA players get it too? I mean, its popularity has grown in recent years. Why not pay some of these star players that get these commercials and these endorsement deals a little bit more? And I'm sure they're getting royalty checks like Caitlin Clark and what's her face, the Cameron Brink for their commercials, but we'll see how that works out. Hopefully that all works out. And I know sports-wise, we also got the Winter Olympics going on, which for me, if there's nothing going on and I'm out in public and there's Winter Olympics on, I might glance at it real quickly. That was me yesterday. I was out. There was the Winter Olympics on the TV when I was out. I just glanced at it a little bit just to see what was going on. But honestly, Winter Olympics aren't really for me. Hockey's always been one of those sports. I'll just glance at it. There's a game on for just a few seconds or might just look at a TV real quick for highlights, but that's about it. I don't actively watch the NHL. I only know the team names and the cities pretty much. And then you got figure skating and skiing have never really been for me. So I'm not really big on the Winter Olympics. Just not my cup of tea. Some people probably enjoy it and all power to them. But for me, if you're curious what my thoughts are, the Winter Olympics just aren't my cup of tea. That's all. I mean, credit to all the athletes who participated, and best of luck to them, but it's just simply not my cup of tea. So I don't really talk about it because I feel like I'd be doing the athletes a disservice by trying to talk about something I don't really follow. So I just let other people that actually are following the Winter Olympics talk about it and just leave it at that. So that's all we got for this episode. So we'll have to see how, like I said, we'll see with the NBA how this plays out in the coming weeks and over the course of the months. Then, of course, we got March. We got March Madness coming up. That's going to be interesting. Some of these players that are potentially entering the NBA or WNBA draft will have their chance to shine. So we'll see how that works out. And so that's all we got for you. So for our coup, Mitch, who got everyone coming in to the chat straight off his show, such as Blaze, Coach Ed, Chad, Nick, all those guys, and then our coup, of course. Thanks for joining me in the chat. I hope you guys enjoyed this show. We'll be back later tonight, 8 p.m., everything on the table with my co-host Agent Warrior X, which we're doing kind of a spin-off from Pick'ems at the same time. But we'll be talking about more than just the NFL. So stay tuned for that later. Again, thanks for tuning in. If you don't catch you then, have a great rest of your day and catch y'all soon.